Hello, I'm Ezla Turbo, and I'll be doing the Hackmon Draft Association Season 7 Power Rankings. Disclaimer, these are opinions, and pretty unqualified ones at that. So, just a brief overview of what I'll be doing is, first I'll be going through the teams, I'll talk about their strengths, their weakness, kind of like the identity of the team, things I like and don't like. And then I'll go through and rank them, and maybe give a little bit of reasoning, though don't expect a lot on that front. So starting off with Rachel and the Pixelite gang, we'll be doing this in draft order. So, one, this is a Tailwind team. It's pretty hype. This team has 4 Tailwind setters. Most of them are pretty good at that. You have Zapdos, which kind of doesn't appreciate using up a move slot for Tailwind, but it can work with it. Moon has Persistent, which is great because that's 7 turns of Tailwind instead of 4. Whimsicott is a Whimsicott. It does support stuff as a living. And then Skarm can pretty easily slot Tailwind. So, oh yeah, and there's a Suicune there for Tailwind if you really need a 5th Tailwind setter. Forgot about that one. So yeah, Tailwind's a pretty cool team style. The only problems with it is this team lacks consistent speed, because Tailwind is pretty inconsistent. Yeah, you don't have anything over base 100, except for Whimsicott. Also, there's about 4 abusers. I want to say 4. I don't think Glaceon really counts. It's good, but it's not that good, and it has a lot of inherent problems. So it's mainly just Joker, Heracross, Hoopa, and Darm who want to abuse it. Yeah, this team does not have hazards whatsoever. You have Sticky Webs on Joker, and Stealth Rock and Spikes on Skarmory. Oh yeah, and Stealth Rock on Moon. That's all of your hazards. You have plenty of removal in Zapdos. I believe Moon gets removal. Whimsicott has removal. Skarmory has removal. So there's no lack of removal, but you don't set many hazards. So it's not bad because Tailwind is kind of hyper offense type playstyle where you just lay hazards once, click Tailwind, and then proceed to attempt to destroy the opposing team. But it's not ideal. So as I've said multiple times, this is a team that wants to use Hoopa a lot, because Hoopa and Heracross are kind of the main abusers of Tailwind. They're the main breakers for the team. The problem with that is Hoopa is 4 times weak to Dark and Ghost, which means you really, really want a good Dark type when you're pairing with Hoopa. The Dark type on this team is a Sandile. You can kind of play around it with the Heracross for Dark type moves and Joker for Ghost type moves. Ghost type moves aren't a problem because Joker loves the chance to switch in. But yeah, that's not going to be great for this team. Not a lot likes taking knocks. Like I said, Heracross is great at taking those, but this team doesn't like fighting Dark and Ghost types that much. Yeah, the other thing is this team's fairy is Whimsicott, which could be better. But if you really want Tailwind that much, Whimsicott can do fine here. Next up, we have King Evie's team. This is a hyper offense team, so it doesn't have a lot of bulk. It's literally just Clefable, Credilli, Lapras. Metagross and Drapion can go bulky, but they would prefer to be offensive. Yeah, the offense on this is kind of nutty. You have a Meloetta, a Victini, X-Ray, which is Galvanize, E-Speed stuff, Metagross, Drapion, Tough Claws, Frostlass, Mega Pinsir, and then you could do Calm Mind, Clefable stuff if you wanted to. You can lay hazards pretty easily on this team with like Metagross, Drapion, and like Clefable, Credilli. But then your removal is 0. Your removal is just like, I believe it's just like Frostless right now. Yeah, it's Hyper Offense, so Bulk is not existing. And the pivoting's okay. It's like the top 3 that have pivoting. I think Metagross gets Teleport, if I remember correctly. And then Clefable gets Teleport, and Lapras gets Flip Turn. Those are the pivots on the team. So it's going to be a little bit harder to get things in safely. But then again, this is kind of a team style that you just kill and sack, kill and sack, kill and sack. And hopefully win that way. Other than that, this is a very physically offensive team. You have about 0 special attackers. You have Life Orb or Calm Mind Clefable and Victini. That's the extent of your special offense, because Frostless is a Tough Claw set and wants to be invested physically because base 80 attack sucks. On to the next team. So it's Hamiyar and the Freetown Thinkers. It's a triple fighting rain team. So Smithereens, Gallade, and Ursh. So the thing about rain on this team is it kind of feels really off, because Armado is also a Hackmon, so it gets Neuroforce too now. It gets a ton of priority, so it doesn't really need to abuse Swift Swim that much. And it's overall not a great Swift Swimmer either. So Rain here is mainly for like Ursh RS and Thundy T. So just those 2 breakers mainly, which feels kind of wasted. It does help Smithereens, Jirachi, and Venusaur kind of, by removing the fire weakness, but it does feel kind of wasted. The bulk here is alright. You have Pelipper, Jirachi, Venusaur, Duraludon, Togetic, so that works fine. You have plenty of pivoting in like Ursh-RS, Thundy T, Pelipper, I believe Armaldo, Jirachi, and then I can't remember if Duraludon gets pivoting. And then I think Togetic gets it. Yeah, triple fighting here is nice because you get to basically hit stuff that would otherwise wall Crab, because Crab is Adaptability, Mach Punch, Ice Shard. So you're going and smashing bulky waters who want to wall Ursh RS, or like fairies and psychics who are going to eat fighting moves with your other 2 fighters, and you're perfectly fine sacking them because you have a Crab in the back who will proceed to demolish everything once its checks have been even slightly weakened, because ice fighting is a very, very good offensive typing. Other than that, no hazards aside from Armaldo, Jirachi, and maybe Duraludon? I can't remember. Okay, yeah, Duraludon gets it in base. So Armaldo, Jirachi, Duraludon is the extent of hazards. Realistically, only the 2 steel types are running it, because Armaldo wants to be offensive. Also, there's just a complete and total lack of dark. So, ghost moves are free, and I mean free against this team. There's a Jirachi Gallade who will not appreciate eating Specs Shadow Balls from like Gengar, Dragapult, or Spectrier. Spectrier actually goes nuts on this team. Also, the last thing to say about this team is your ice resists are non-existent. You have Ursh RS as base. Ursh RS and Jirachi are basically the ice resist. Smithereen is not a resist to anything. Duraludon has 0 special defense. You have Togetic and Venusaur, and then like Pelipper gets freeze dried, Thundy gets ice beamed. So yeah, ice beams are pretty free against this team. Though I mean, generally Jirachi can take them fairly well. So next up we have Danny Wheelie and the Blitzleberons. This team has a pivot for nearly every mod is a pivot. Dragapult gets pivoting, Gungnir gets pivoting, Akbar gets pivoting, Primarina gets pivoting, Scyther gets pivoting, Pyroar gets pivoting, Uxie gets pivoting, Manectric gets pivoting. So that's like 3 mods that don't get pivoting out of the 11 that Danny has. This team has great offense, actually. So like, Dragapult 1 does everything. Gungnir can run physical special sets with like Icicle Spear or Triple Axle. I can't remember if it has both. Dual Wind Beat, or it can run like Frost Breath stuff. Primarina does Spec Scarf Primarina stuff with, or Calm Mind, I guess. You have a Lycanroc Dusk, you have a Breloom, you have a Scyther. This is a Mountaineer Scyther, so it runs Eviolite and sets up 2. You have a Magikarp Mind Blown Pyroar that nukes anything on the special side. You have a Manectric Mega that just clicks Volt Switch over and over again into. And then if you're feeling scared of grounds, you can go Breloom or Primarina or Gungnir, all of who will abuse those grounds. And set up on them with like Dragon Dance or Spore or Swords Dance or something. Calm Mind. Or Flip Turn even on Primarina. Speed tiers are amazing. Your speed cap is Dragapult. And then going down from that, you have, or is it Manectric Mega? I can't remember. But either way, you have those 2 at the top. And then you have Lycan Dusk at 110, Pyroar at 109. So you don't have to worry about 120s running Adamant or Modest. And then from there, speed tiers go up pretty evenly. Gungnir's at 85, Uxie's at 80, I believe. Or 70, no, it's 90. I think. Yeah, it's 90. Breloom's at 70, Scyther's at 105. Yeah, I'm going way out of order. Primarina's at 60, Akbar's at 20, I want to say. So, speed tiers work fine on this team. As far as bulk, it's passable. Like, Akbar can tank a lot of stuff. Mountaineer Scyther is fairly bulky and can take some hits that Akbar doesn't want to, like fighting hits or ground moves it's immune to. So those 2 can actually work fairly well as a defensive pair, even though Scyther doesn't even want to run defensive. Just by virtue of its typing, it complements Akbar pretty well, especially since Scyther's 4 times rock weakness is cancelled sometimes by Mountaineer, and then Akbar's 4 times resist. So that actually works pretty well as a defensive pair. You have a Skuntank, you have a Uxie. Yeah, between those 3, and then like sometimes Primarina, you have passable bulk, though most of the time the bulk is just clicking recovery, hazards, or pivoting, because this team has pivoting on every mon pretty much. The hazard game is kind of, it's like barely there. It's like just enough to be usable, with Gungnir being able to defog, Akbar laying rocks. Lycan Dusk can rock, it does not want to. Scyther can defog, Skuntank can defog, Uxie can rock. So like, it's just enough to, because like Akbar's always going to be running rocks, so it's like, you have just enough to be able to get rocks up, and then like defog it if you really, really need to. Though generally you're not going to want to. The other thing to say about this team is priority spam. Okay, let's go from the top. Dragapult, that gets Sucker Punch. Gungnir, that gets Technician Ice Shard. I don't think Akbar gets priority, neither does Primarina, but then you have Lycan Dusk, who gets Tough Claws, Accelerock, and then you have Breloom with Mach Punch, Scyther with Quick Attack, that doesn't really count as much, and then you just have the rest of your team breaking. So, that's fun. Have fun setting up versus this team. Next up we have Sac L07 and the Liverpool Littons. So, there's a round 1 tier 3 named Musashi, which Sac created, so of course you have to take it. So the bulk here is actually pretty good with Grendel, which is a regenerator, Druddigan, Arcanine, Necrozma, a bulky slacking set, Tentacruel, Mandibuzz, Meganium, Prankster Meganium, I believe. And as far as like setup, you have I believe Musashi and Necrozma. Both of those are pretty. Oh, and Spectrier. All of those are good at setup, so that's cool. You have good breaking, I guess, with Mega Medicham and Musashi, and then like slacking. I know I said it's a bulky set, but also slacking is nutty. Excuse me. It has a nutty attack, and you can just click return. Most of the time, like even without investment, that does so much. As far as things I don't like about this team is kind of just like a lack of a hazard game, and then like the fact that this team doesn't have a fairy or a steel. So, start with the top one. Grendel has rocks. Yeah, basically nothing else on the team has anything particularly great. Removal's fine. You have Tentacruel, Mandibuzz, and I believe Slacking. But rocks are basically just Grendel, and then I think it's Slacking? One of his hacks had rocks, I believe. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, I think it's Slacking that has rocks, if I remember correctly. I don't have its hack. I have Meganium's. Meganium doesn't have rocks. So yeah, the other thing is, Mawile is not a fairy nor a steel. And that's this team's Soul Fairy and Soul Steel. So that's going to be highly abusable. Next up, we have S and the Pastel Orchids. I don't really have a lot to say about this. It's just like a generally really well-balanced team. It's well-rounded. You've got good bulk with Ouija, and then like Registeel, Aromatisse, Rotom Wash, which is classic S bulk. I mean, like, Hydreigon can also be bulky, but it's not often going to be doing that. This team has actually a lot of good Lopunny support. You have Rocks on Registeel, you have, like, Spikes from Ouija, you have Toxic Spikes from Nidoking, and then, like, also the fact that you have a bunch of Breakers on this team with, like, Nidoking, Tyrantrum, Hydreigon, and then Delphox, Pinsir. Pinsir kind of... It's a Tinted Lens Pinsir which clicks U-turn all the time, which is like... It's fun, it does a lot of chip. It also dies to chip, but it does a lot of chip, which is great for Mega Lopunny. Yeah, this is a dual Dragon offense team, which is nice. Wears down steals and all that. I guess the hazards can be questionable at times, but they're there, and they're definitely usable. It's mainly like Defogs that I'm concerned about, because you can usually get up hazards with Registeel and like Pinsir if because Pinsir can get free turns. It's not often, and it usually wants to click U-turn, but it can get free turns. And then Oija is always spiking, or it can always spike. But yeah, removal can be a little bit iffy at times. The removal's fine, because you have a Rotom Wash, and a Hydreigon, and you have Magic Bounce on Oija. But it can be questionable at times, so that's just something to watch out for. Because I don't think you're running Defog Tornadoes that often. Overall, pretty well balanced. I should probably speed this up, it's already 20 minutes in. OC Frey and the Porgyons. I don't have a lot to say about this team. I don't really know what to think about it. You have amazing bulk with Remedy, Metelephant, Nidoqueen, Jellicent, and then you have good breaking, actually, like really good breaking in Nidoqueen, QB, Obstagoon, Mismagius, Magmortar, and then kind of like Heliolisk and Leafeon and Pidgeot, like mostly Leafeon though, because it's better Rillaboom, and it will take advantage of all of that by cleaning stuff up with Grassy Glide off like 130 attack, I believe. I don't have much else to say about this team. It has good hazards, good enough removal. The removal's, I say good enough because Remedy and Metelephant can usually fit Rapid Spin on their sets. The only thing that really gets me here is there's kind of a lack of slow pivoting, which you do want with a lot of these like more offensive mons. It's literally just Remedy and Teleport Magmortar, so that could be an issue, but overall fairly decent. Cartcat and the Tennessee Voltorbs. This team is bulky. You have a Table Flip and a Goodra. Both mons known for having absolute massive defenses in one defense stat, and they work fairly well together. You also have a Sylveon for Wish. Pachinko is also fairly bulky. It's a Zapdos. It's like Hertom Fan, but what if it was Zapdos what if it was like Zapdos and Togekiss combined? So yeah, this team is fairly bulky. Just like looking at the top four, then you have Sarina, Aegislash, or Uniclus. It's kind of like semi-Trick Room, because you go Trick Room Sylveon, Trick Room Crawdont, Trick Room Camerupt, Trick Room Aegislash. So you have decent abusers, I guess. But it's mainly just like Camerupt and Crawdont who can really abuse it. This team does not have great hazards. It's like Table Flip and Table Flip. Camerupt's not letting hazards. The removal... Okay, this is a Mega Beedrill team, and Mega Beedrill does precisely one thing, and that is click U-turn. You know what Mega Beedrill hates? Stealth Rocks. Aside from this team not having great hazard setup, the hazard control isn't great either. I mean, Pachinko, Table Flip, Sarina can do it, but Pachinko doesn't usually enjoy running Defog when it could use slots for other stuff. Table Flip can run it, and it does get the free turns to abuse it, but it could be better because it's mainly Table Flip Sarina. Bonus points for abusing Jawlock Flinks, which is just, it's super fun. Assuming, of course, that you actually get to set it up. You might need screens for that. Ace Jake and the Southampton Scizors. So this is a bulky offense team. Lando T, Kyurem, Scizor, Mega, Raikou, Sylvally, Chandelure. I am not going to cover the rest because why would I? So just listen to those top 6 that I listed. All of them they all have great offensive options. So Lando can be utility, but also Sword Stance Rock Polish stuff that it can do. It can do Banded, it can do Scarfed. Curum has Specs, Scarf, Dragon Dance, just a ton of stuff. Scissor can be bulky, or can be Sword Stance, or just click U-turn and Bullet Punch until things die. Raikou does Calm Mind, or Specs, or Scarf stuff. Sylvalai does a ton of things, and it's like, what do you pick? Chandelure does Chandelure stuff. Yeah, something someone pointed out is that this team doesn't really have a great fairy. Rapidash Galar is cool and all, but it's like not a great defensive fairy. So like anytime a defensive fairy is needed, it has to be Sylvalai. So Sylvalai might be running fairy a lot. Well, this team doesn't have great dedicated bulk. The thing about this team is all its bulky options also have offensive capabilities. So Sylvalai has offensive capabilities. Miltank has some sort of limited offensive capabilities according to Ace Jake. Seismitoad can run offensive stuff sometimes. Virizion can too. Curum can run bulky or offensive. Lando T can run bulky or offensive. Scizor can run bulky or offensive. So this is basically bulky offense in a nutshell. The other thing I have to say, this team's actually really good. The only other thing I have to nitpick is removal can be difficult to fit because Lando T does like running a lot of different things, and then Scizor doesn't always want to run Defog. Sylvalai can be, but you can usually just slap it on Sylvalai if those two can't run it. But no, this team is pretty good. So, Mighty Barb and Yendi Sylveons. So, this team is like tied for the most All-Stars with 4 of them. It's a webs offense team, so like it abuses Arachnoid webs to the best of its abilities because Sparky likes being able to not have to run timid and just click buttons. I used it a lot last season, so I know that thing is scary and not a lot wants to switch into it. You have Fauna, another scary mon that is held back by very little except for being slightly slower than the average mon, which it no longer is. And then you have a decent bulky core with Crystal Mega Aggron being just 2 really bulky mons. The only thing here I have to say is, or actually not the only thing, I have quite a few things to say about this. 1. Fire resists is Araquanid. Blacephalon is not an anything resist. Teryx is also not an anything resist. It is Araquanid Flygon. Those are your fire resists. So I guess Flygon doesn't mind being utility, and Araquanid's already going to be bulky specially anyways, but that's a thing that could be problematic. Just like hazards in general feel kind of lacking on this team. Like you have Aggron to lay hazards, Flygon to lay hazards, Teryx can do hazards, but honestly they do feel kind of lacking. You do get screens though from Crystal, which is pretty nice, not gonna lie. The other thing I have to say is Glalie is a wasted slot. That thing is not coming. Even with Slush Rush, it's just so bad it's not coming. Hypno probably won't come either, as it didn't gain much from its hack. So it's mainly going to be like the other 9 that come. And then even then, like, Ditto and Flygon are not always coming and they can be questionable. Ditto feels like it's mostly there to force prep. So next up we have Lynn and the Canberra Kamalas. This is the other team tied for the most All-Stars. I will say it has great bulk. Naruto, Lancelot, Titan. Then you have like a Togekiss, Slowbro, Galar. The hazards are fine, I guess. You have Titan, Naruto, and like something else I can't remember off the top of my head. The offense. Oh yeah, removal is perfectly fine too. I think. I cannot remember for the life of me what Titan, Lancelot, and Naruto get, aside from their main gimmicks, which are, from top to bottom, Triad Giga Drain stuff, or Horn Leech stuff, Regenerator, Scavalier, and with First Impression, I believe, and Sandstream, Regirock. I can't remember what they get, aside from what they get in base. But yeah, you don't have a lot of breakers on this team. It's like Laxus, Lancelot, but that's about it. And Lancelot does want to run bulky for a good number of the time, since it is your steal. So it's going to be like a balance between running offensive and bulky a lot of weeks. And then like Laxus is your other breaker. So this team, because you don't have great breakers, this team does rely a lot on getting chip. So it's like you have, it's mostly like rocks, phasing, spikes, and just like chipping opponents down with a Selgor, Greninja, and like Titan, Sand, in order for Naruto or like Greninja or Selgor or Golduck to clean. Or Sceptile, I guess. Golduck is cool. It's a simple set, which does give this team a nice setup sweeper. The Selgor is another cool one, but it's not any stronger than base Selgor, and is even more susceptible to chip due to being a Flame Orbs, Flame or what's it called? Flame Orb Flare Boost, which means that it is now dying to rocks and burn chip consistently after like 3 switch-ins. Well, in addition, it's not any stronger than like Specs of Selgor, except now it can switch moves, so that it's cool but not great. Next up, we have Mystic 07 and the Madville Midnights. So when I look at this team, what I see is it's fairly bulky, and it has a lot of breaking options. You have Snorlax, Keldeo, Zarude, Garticuno as far as like breaking options, and as far as and Sideguard, I guess. Bulk. Yeah, pretty much everything on this team is bulky. You have a Zygarde, you have a Heatom, you have, I think Garticuno has the usable bulk. Zarude has actually pretty abusable bulk. Snorlax is bulky, you have a Wigglytuff, you have a Bronzong, so this team is fairly bulky. You have, also a lot of your bulk isn't really that passive. Bronzong is like the most passive one on this team, because Wigglytuff can do stuff with like teleport and all that, and disabling stuff with like Thunder Wave, and I believe it gets Knock, but I could not remember life of me what it gets. Okay, it does not. It gets Spore, that's what it was that makes it not passive. It does still get switched into by like grass types, but Fire Blast is fun because Wigglytuff is a Gen 1 Mon with barely usable special attack. The other thing I will say is most of the bulk does not have reliable recovery. That is, Bronzong does not have reliable recovery. Snorlax does not have reliable recovery. Rotom Heat does not have reliable recovery. So you're going to be relying quite a bit on Wigglytuff Wish Pass, which it does really well due to having teleport and a massive HP stat. But this team is a little bit reliant on that Wish Pass. This is a slower overall team, with most of the team being under base 100. The stuff above base 100 would be Keldeo, Aerodactyl, and Scolipede. But between, like, and Zarude. But between, like, Keldeo, Zarude, and Scolipede, that already forces enough prep as far as, like, speed. So you do have options. The other thing I do like about this team is everything has setup. From top to bottom, Dragon Dance, Nasty Plot, Calm Mind, Bulk Up, Curse, Nasty Plot, I believe. Or is it? No, it's Calm Mind, I think. This can run Dragon Dance. Or Arrow can run Dragon Dance. Banette. Okay, Banette doesn't get set up. Scolipede gets set up. Wigglytuff and Bronzong. Okay, Bronzong gets Iron Defense stuff. And Calm Mind stuff if you really want to run set up Bronzong. And Wigglytuff gets Screams too, to be annoying. So yeah, this team has a lot of different possibilities for win cons. Or like just set up sweepers in general. And like, it's not really based on any one particular threat, but just like having a ton of threats of like everywhere. So we have Better and the Philadelphia Flygons. Yes, this team. I look forward to fighting this. Megamon, Mew, Goreclaw. That's fun. Mega Mawile does Mega Mawile stuff. Goreclaw is Regenerator. And it has Teleport or Parting Shot, one of the two, I can't remember. And Recovery. So it does. It hits like a truck. Uninvested with Knock and like Draco Meteor, and can teleport around and regenerate and stuff. So that's fun to fight. King Kabutops does stuff with adaptability, Crab Hammers, and Accelerocks and Aqua Jets. I will say this team does feel a little bit slow, though you do have a Gengar Mew, which does force prep. But overall, like, the average speed of the team is like on the lower end. This team does have quite a bit of offensive options between like Mega Maw, Mew, Goreclaw, Kinkabu. Moltres can run offensive, Shaman can run offensive badly, but it can. What does Piloswine get? Okay, it doesn't get Swords Dance anymore. I forgot that was removed. Yeah, Mew gets set up. I think I skipped that. Dedenne doesn't get Plot, but Gengar does. So, like, a lot of this team has set up. Dedenne does Transistor stuff, Transistor, Fleer Cannon, Moonblast stuff, which, coming off base 81 special attack, isn't particularly impressive, but it does hurt. So this team has a fair bit of offense, but it also has a quite good bulk, which allows Mew to do basically anything it wants. This team is great at enabling Mew to do stuff, because you have basically most of the rules covered without it, and Mew can fill in whatever is needed for whatever the matchup is. The other thing is, you get to click priority stuff a lot. You get Sucker Punch on Mega Maw, you get Kinkabu, whose basically entire deal is priority. Piloswine gets priority, and Hitmontop. So that's fun. It's not nearly as much as some of the other teams, but there is a good amount of priority here. Okay, Dashing Sceptile and the Seattle Sigilifts. You have a ton of offense. You also have a lot of speed. So, like, Darkrai's a speed cap. you have Diancie, Mega, Mars. Mars is at, I believe, 111 or 112 speed. Zapdos, Galar, Obdizat, Donphin, Mesprit, Pikamuku, Decidueye, Vikavolt, Tauros. So you have good offense. Tauros is Ice Scales, which I completely forgot about. So it gets Ice Scales bulk up stuff. So again, this is another team where a lot of stuff has setup options or just like whack stuff outright. You don't have a lot of bulk on this team with like Donphin, Mesprit being most of the bulk. Vikavolt can be bulky, but it doesn't have great outright defenses. Same with Decidueye. So the bulk is kind of minimal. Same with the removal. It's like Donphin. Yeah, it's just Donphin, Decidueye, Vikavolt. That's the entirety of your removal. You do have a Diancie Mega to bounce hazards, but removal is kind of just like barely there. You do have quite a few hazards you could stack though, between like rocks from Donphin or Diancie. You have spikes from Mesprit, also rocks from Mesprit. So that works fine. You also have webs from Vikavolt. So the thing about this team is it's nice because you can run webs if you want to, but you don't have to. And Zapdos Galar benefits from webs too because it can afford not to run Scarf as often, and it can also do stuff with Defiant because Defiant is fun on Hazard Stack. Yeah, this team just feels kind of like it wants to be Hazard Stack, and it wants to be like some sort of offense. But then the bulk is pitiful and the hazards are also kind of not great. Next up, Lord Nobody and the Salty Swamperts. Okay, I honestly really like this team because Corviknight, Garchomp, Weavile, Yard, Conk, Slowking, Hatterene, Magic Guard, Raichu, and Truant Regigigas. So Regigigas is going to be mainly defensive for the most part because of the way it is. Its recovery is jungle healing, so it does get a little bit of recovery. But it does seem like it's going to be more of a utility mod, and it's going to be trying to abuse its massive bulk instead of the massive 160 attack stat, which is halved. This team is pretty well rounded. You actually have good bulk between like Corviknight, the aforementioned Regigigas, Slowking, Hatterene can be bulky, and then you have offensive stuff with like Garchomp, Weavile, Yard, Conk, and then like Hatterene and Raichu again. So this has a good blend of both. I do like the fact that it can run Trick Room with Slowking and Conkeldurr and Hatterene, all who can kind of abuse it. Regigigas could abuse it, but it has pitiful special attack. Oh yeah, there's a Vileplume there, which can abuse it if you feel like running something based off of the 110 special attack. The other thing, so the gripes I do have with this is like minimal hazard game. It's like Hatterene bouncing it, and Corviknight defogging it. That's the entirety of the removal on this team. The hazards are just Garchomp. Oh yeah, and Regigigas removing. So anti-hazards are workable for Yard between Regigigas, Hatterene, and Corviknight, but it could be better. You do have a lot of breakers though between Yard, Conk, Hat, and then like Weavile and Garchomp can do stuff, and also Raichu gets set up so it's quite dangerous. Raichu, Garchomp, Weavile can all end games after clicking one boosting move. And then you also have actually quite a bit of priority between like Weavile, Conkeldurr, and Raichu. So this team works pretty well, actually. I do like this team a lot. Byronio B in the Toronto Ranchers. I will say, I'll attempt to summarize this team as fast as I can. Regenerator, Gliscor with Incineroar to finish the Fire, Water, Grass. You have dual Dragon offense, which means that Steels and Fairies are going to get hurt, and that is perfectly fine with Nihilego, which will now click Meteor Beam stuff, or Scarf or Specs because Steels are now dead, or highly chipped. Bolton also appreciates the ability of dragons to kill dragons, and also Nihilego doing damage to grounds over time. Bulk is usable, or actually no, it's not just usable, it's great between Slowbro, Tangrowth, and Gliscor, and then also a throwback there, and Incineroar. I will say, oh yeah, and Munchlax. I will say that the removable can be a little bit questionable at times, with Gliscor not always wanting to run Defog, and Altaria doesn't want to run it usually, it doesn't have the slots, and it's mainly going to be going to Throw, which does not get removal. My bad. It gets Spikes. So that's not great. The other thing that I have to say is Mega Altaria as Soul Fairy is not great because you won't get the Fairy typing until after you Mega Evolve. And your Steel is Bronzong, which doesn't have recovery, so it can be hard to take on dragons at times. Fighters are usually covered by Gliscor and Nihilego, so you're fine on that front. Scalicipod and St. Martin Scolopedes. It has a slower average speed. Your speed above 100 is Zeraora and Crobat. That's it. You do have good bulk between like Glowking, Garchomp, Heatran, Florges, Umbreon, Swampert, Lilligant, Runerigus. The only problem is that it is a bit reliant on Wish Pass in the case of like Heatran, Swampert, which isn't too bad. Those two can be fine. But the thing is, good bulk plus 2 good Wish Passers. Umbreon is one of the better Wish Passers in this game. Florges is an okay one. So yeah, this team is going to be annoying to kill, especially since you also have regen. You have this is another team where you have momentum on a lot of the mons. It's like everything except for Heatran, Garchomp, Glowking has momentum. The hazards are fine with like Tran and Garchomp being able to almost always, or Swampert and Runerigus getting up hazards a lot of the time. This is a triple ground team, by the way. I forgot to mention this team does not have great freeze dry resists, except for like, because like Heatran's the only resist. So this team just gets clicked freeze dry into. But yeah, this team doesn't have a lot of breaking power. Slowking Galar can do stuff occasionally. Garchomp is the main breaker for this team. Heatran's the breaker. But yeah, it's those 3 that really are the ones consistently dealing damage for this team. Which makes me think of Super Fang Crobat, or Hyper Fang Crobat, I can't remember which it is. Super Fang, which is just funny. This team does feel a little bit passive, especially with like the Wish Pass and the like Swampert not being a great offensive mon anymore, and Crobat. Crobat does stuff, but it's not great. So this team does feel a bit passive. Oh yeah, I forgot to say it does get webs, which is great for Garchomp Heatran. So, King Bulgarian. Wait, did I skip? Okay, no, it's just King Bulgarian 27 and Glendor Go-Goats. So, good fire water grass with like Mozilla, Genghis, Tapu Fini, and then like Fairy Steel Dragon with like Tapu Fini, Scizor, and Latias. I do like that. You do have... The fun thing is you can actually run Wish Latias on this team. It's usable because you now have a Sigilifts, you have a Tapu Fini, which is just funny. It's not great, but it can do stuff. This team does feel like it's a bit on the slower end, because like your speed above 100 is Absol Mega. Not a good mod. Latias, Mienshao. So mainly Latias, Mienshao. It's an Electrode, but Electrode isn't great either. It didn't gain much from being hacked. There is a little bit of a lack of breaking power outside of like Mozilla. Mozilla and Pheasant. Actually, no, I take that back. Mozilla and Pheasant are probably fine as far as breaking power goes. It has multiple setup threats between like Mozilla, Genghis, Scizor, Latias. I guess Mienshao can run Sword Stance. Absol can also Sword Stance. I will say I don't like Mega Absol that much. It's a pretty disappointing mod in general, and as the Soul Dark on this team, it is questionable. Also, Unpheasant is your it's your Ghost Resist, and I mean it can do Pseudo Dark stuff with Sucker Punch, but Mega Absol as Dark is questionable. My team, that's the turf on the Shedinja Spooks. I do like my top three. Tapu Koko, Latios, Ferrothorn is a fun Fairy Dragon Steel, and then Vaporeon also providing Wish support. The problem is that between, like, overall for most of my bulk, it doesn't have recovery. Between, like, Claydol, Muk, Alola, and then Ferrothorn, Vaporeon, it relies a lot on Wish Pass and Leech Seed to stay healthy throughout the game. My speed tiers are good with, like, 150, 130, 110, 105. So 90, 85, and then all the way down. I think it goes 75 is the next one. So, or 78, I can't remember. So, speed tiers are good. It's a pretty fast team overall, fast and frail. It does kind of lack a bit of breaking power. It's like Porygon Z and Latios as the breakers, and then like Sock can do stuff, Rapidash can do stuff, but Rapidash does not have a lot of power. Even with an item, base 100 attack is not good anymore. Also, the removal is pretty bad. It's Coco, Latios, Arrow, Claydol. You can see the problem. Most of those don't want to be running any sort of removal, so it's mainly like Claydol, Tapu Koko, which is hilarious to me. The hazard setting isn't great either, with like Ferrothorn being like the only... Ferrothorn and Claydol are the only rockers. Vanillux does get... it does provide nice Veil support for like setup Latios, setup Tapu Koko, setup Porgyons, setup Aerodactyl. So this thing has a lot of good setup. Sock also can run Sword Stance, which is fun. Rapidash too. So this team gets a lot of setup actually. But overall, it does feel like I slapped a bunch of offensive mons together, and I'm praying that this will hold together. But I do like the Vulcan offense. But then again, I did put it together, so I won't. So I'll be trying to bias against myself for the most part. Last team here is it's Jiggy and the Detroit Lux Rays. This is a Zolt Sand team, which is fun considering that this came up later. Sand's not always consistent, so it's not always going to be Zolt Sand, because your sand setter is Shark the Sandaconda, which wants to run Poison Heal a lot of the time, as it's kind of a discount Gliscor. Even without that, Dracozolt can do stuff, but it does like having sand a lot. I will say Floette Eternal and Doug Trio. So Doug Trio's Magnet Pool, which is fun for Floette because the only thing Floette really gets walled particularly hard by is steals. So Doug trapping and removing those is really nice. The regen core of Torn, Momola, and Eldegoss is fun. Soul Steel as Doug is not great. That's something that can be abused, especially considering, like, this is something I forgot to mention. No ice resists. Your ice resist is a Momola. You have Eldegoss, Dracozolt, Shark, Torn Teeth. Those 4 are all weak to ice, and you do not have ice resists. The hazards can be iffy at times, but Shark can usually get them up. And the other thing I have to say is this team can be a little bit slow without sand. Most of the team is below base 100. Your things above base 100 are Torrentee and Dugalola. So that's just something to watch out for. I'll rank them real quick since this is already almost an hour long and finish up. So in top place I have S for a really well-rounded team with just like good. It's good at pretty much everything. It's a good balance. Hazards. It can do hazards that can do just like straight up hyper offense if it wants to. Lord Nobody's team is another similarly well balanced team that just feels like it'd be a lot of fun to play with. Danny Wheelies is probably the best hyper offense that there is, especially because like it has good pivoting that it can abuse, unlike the other hyper offenses that were drafted. Better's team is in 4th because yes, it was the Mega Mew Core Claw team with also Shaman, Moltres, Piloswine, King Kabu, and a Gengar, which was round 10. So there's not really a lot of. I don't think I need to elaborate further. Ace Jake's team is in 4. It's a fairly solid, bulky offense, which is just really nice on compared to most of the other teams, considering this is a 20-person draft. Mystic '07's team is also pretty nice, so that earned it a 6th place, because what's not to like about Zygarde, Rotom, Heat, Keldeo, Zarude, Snorlax, Garticuno, Scolipede? That's just a lot of threats that are fun, and you can just keep clicking buttons with all these threats, and there's just a lot of things that this team does well that kind of, in my opinion, overcomes the lack of speed. And next up we have my team, which is just a strong, it has good bulk. No matter what I might think about my team, it undeniably has good bulk. It has really strong offense too, but like I said, the hazard game being not great is admittedly holding it back a bit, and there's other factors too that make me dislike my team. It's Jiggy's team is next. I do really like. I rated it this high mainly for the synergy between Floette E and the Doug A. And also just like having Zolt Sand is nice. This team just has a lot of options in general, and has good bulk, good utility overall. Though it is one of the weirder teams. Rachel's team, I feel like this has to be obligatory top 10 just due to the innovation of the team style and how much fun it would be to play. It does have its shortcomings, but it manages to play pretty well around most of them. Byronio B's team is up next because it has one good offense, usable. It has good offense, good bulk. Actually, not just good bulk, superb bulk. And overall, just does the things that it wants to do pretty well. And then, in 11th place, we have King Bulgarian's team, which is bulky, a lot of setup threats, but then just like the lack of special offense, the lack of speed, really holds it back a lot. Lynn's team's up next because it wants to rely a lot on chip, which it has good win cons, but it doesn't have a lot of breaking power, so it's going to be relying on a longer game of more chip, I feel like. Mighty Barb's team's in 13th. Yeah, that team was the other 4 All-Star team. And I do like the use of the All-Stars in the combination, but just like not having great fire resists and hazards is kind of a little iffy for me, and then just also like the way that the Hackmons were kind of squandered pushes it down a bit. King Evie's team is in 14th due to having really great offense, but also 0 bulk. So like it's good for what it is, but it's also not great because also priority exists. And it really exists in this team. And in this format, sorry. So there's just like the team structure isn't necessarily that great. I feel like there could have been better things done with this team. 15th is Dashing Sceptile. I do think that it does have a lot of undeniably good offense. I just don't really like it that much. Just like the lack of like pivoting and bulk just kind of holds it back a bit in my opinion. I mean, yes, you can always just go like Larry or Vikavolt for some slow offense, but honestly feels kind of just off to me, and there's quite a few things that feel like they're exploitable versus his team, so that's just what leaves it in 15th. Scizors' team is in 16th because it's just fairly passive. It's a cool team, but it's pretty passive outside of like running web stuff. It's Hamiyar's in 17th, mostly because just there's a lot of problems with the team, and it doesn't feel great with like rain that it isn't really rain. OC Frey is in 9th or 18th. I don't really like the team a lot. It's kind of slow, kind of weird. Though it does do what it wants to do fairly. I mean, it's kind of just iffy. Because a lot of the time you're not going to be able to bring everything it wants to bring. And just like the lack of slow pivoting to get things on the field does hurt it. Cartcant's in 19th place because it just feels it doesn't have great offense. It's like you have a lot of bulk, but what are you going to do with that bulk? You want to click U-turn a bunch, but then you don't have removal in order to click U-turn a bunch, or at least your removal is not great. And then the Trick Room mode makes the other half of the team feel kind of off because your Trick Room abusers aren't even that good. And then lastly we have Sac L07. I hate to do this, but it's just not a good team. Sure, you have bulk, you have things like let me find it. Yeah, you have bulk, you have breaking power, but also the team doesn't work that well together, and the fact that Mawile is your Soul Fairy and Steel holds it back so much. Looking back at this, I probably should have changed a few of the rankings, but I'm lazy and I'm going to leave them where they are now. So, comment or feel free to yell at me about how these rankings are objectively wrong and should be changed. And thanks for listening to this hour-long rant about the Hackmans Draft Association Season 7. Thanks.